Hi everyone, fifth
Uh,
day of pre-summit working sessions. Feel free to go on video. It's just us, though it is being recorded. Today we're going to talk about the miscellaneous topics, which we think we are passionate about, but we couldn't find a place in the other tracks. And I already have some ideas for them, and not just my ideas, but ideas from community. But we're going to discuss them. Before we move on, can you see the screen?
yeah.
Great. So I can manage to do two things at once. Cool. Yep. So this is a working session, a 1 hour working session, so not too bad. We're gonna, as we did with the previous ones, we're gonna start with what is the summit for our two new guests, to tell them about the summit, and then we're gonna talk about what miscellaneous topics we can cover at the summit, which we would like to cover. Oh my God, I can't even speak today. Okay, summit. What is the summit? The summit is quite an intense experience. So we come together, the experts and the noobs, we all come together on the topics that we are passionate about, and we discuss how we can solve some real world problems. We bring in our problems, or we do some sessions on like learning about some technologies, things that are upcoming in our areas. We have government agencies, we have vendors, we have users, we have whoever that's interested and whoever wants to contribute. We bring them together. That's the whole aim, bringing people together to solve a problem. So it's not like a conference where one person talks and the others listen. And we do expect like everyone to contribute. This year is the 6th summit, and this year, because of the COVID, it will be all virtual. We will be using Hey Summit as a platform and Zoom, and we will record every sessions and we will post them on YouTube afterwards, as we have been doing with pre-summit ones. And you can see lots of pictures from the previous ones. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's quite intense. I joined the sessions last year for the first time, and it was an experience. That's why I stuck around and became one of the organizers this year. And with the working sessions, we do have outcomes. We create outcomes, we document them, and we either use them for further sessions, or they become milestones in some other projects, or they become artifacts for the industry to use. We received really good feedback from past summits. And as I was mentioning, the working sessions, very collaborative, focusing on a topic, and we have a moderator who moderates the session, but everyone chips in, and it's an active discussion, brainstorming or problem solving, and we create outcomes documents. That is quite key, because otherwise just the value is lost at the end. Then we have user sessions. These are more like when we have a working session and we decide that we want to do something deep dive on a topic, then we use the user sessions to go into deep of those topics, or use it for hands-on sharing experience. Then there are 3 types of people who join the summit. There are organizers such as myself and Dennis and Adam. And there are practitioners who take active role. They lead the conversations, they lead the discussions, and they do some preparation before the sessions so that we get the most value out of the sessions. And then we have the participants. These are people who might be new to the subject, but they still contribute with their questions and their opinions. And it's quite a high energy thing, the summit. Every session it requires your brain power. It requires you to be focused and create ideas and challenge yourself and others. As we said, it's 100% online. We are now having pre-summit brainstorming sessions. This is one of them. We're going to do next week as well. And end of next week, we aim to publish a draft schedule. And this year, we've decided to do some training sessions before the summit. The 2 weeks before the summit, we will put in some training sessions so that the barriers for entry is lowered. So everyone, all the community members can have sort of a baseline understanding of the topics we're going to discuss, so that they don't feel discouraged to speak up, so that they're encouraged. And then on between 15th and 19th of June, we will have the summit. Yes, so at the summit, we will have a keynote as the start of the day, just half an hour, short session. What are we going to do that day? And then we will have 2-hour working sessions and 1-hour breaks throughout the day. And the last sessions, in the evening sessions, we might have a Netflix party or something like that. We normally have, when we were on site, we would have a barbecue and a movie. So we will try to replicate that as much as we can. So the current tracks, which are drafts, you can see on the screen, but they're up for negotiation, and we already started changing some of them. So, but this is, as you can see, it's more, this is application security, DevSecOps, threat modeling, cloud security, training, security champions, CISOs, even CEOs. What does a CEO require from their security team? So it's quite needs-based. So what the community needs, or what the community thinks the rest of the industry needs, we're going to be discussing. Tickets are £50. But if you are an OWASP leader or a member, you get a free ticket. And also if you are an active contributor, you also get a free ticket. Just reach out to me or Dennis. Well, Glasswall has already sponsored some number of tickets, and Glasswall, Dennis works at Glasswall, and his team, some people from his team will be actively taking part. So let's move on to today's topic. So today's topic is miscellaneous, which means everything and anything. And feel free to chip in. So if we were, the key question is, we will have many people from our industry, leaders from our industry, and noobs from our industry, or people who want to join the industry. And when we all come together, what kind of topics should we talk about so that it creates value for the rest of the industry? So I have like 4 things already in there that we can start discussing about. Do you guys want to start discussing, and I will start taking notes?
Is that the small list that you've got on the right?
Yeah.
Also, I think it might be worth, from a miscellaneous point of view, have a session or small session or something at the back end of the week, which can be left open for people to vote on, perhaps at the beginning of the week, as to what they want.
Okay.
Sort of like open sessions, and that people can then sort of submit ideas, say in the first 2 days, and we can run a poll to all the attendees, and then then that's the topics covered in that session.
Yep.
One session?
But they're an hour long, aren't they? So
2 hours.
2 hours long, aren't they? Okay, so yeah, that's quite long. I think you can break that down into more than one sub-session.
So in the past, what we've done, and it's actually quite interesting. So depending on the venue, but what we always created was a whole number of places that you can just have meetings. So I guess Central Parks was easy because, you know, all the villas become a meeting room, right?
Yeah.
But I remember when we were in hotels, you know, we literally would go around the hotel, and every spot that we could figure out that, you know, 7 or 10 or 8 people could come together, we'll name a place. And then basically we will, you know, actually, so the idea was the dynamic schedule. That was the part of it, and it was actually encouraged for you know, participants to create sessions. And actually I think this year we could probably scale a bit better, because it's going to be easier to reach out. It's going to be easier to form those dynamic schedules, because, you know, basically it's going to be easy to register. It's going to be easy to as the individuals to show their you know, their interest. So that's why I think that the key concept there is to say, you know, you know, and I remember when people talk about the schedule, I would say, when will the schedule be completed? I'm going, yeah, at the last hour of the summer, right? That's when the schedule is really completed. So I think it's important that we keep reiterating the fact that you should be creating new sessions, right? You should be you know, actively thinking about what are the things to do. And I think what we need to think from a management point of view is just to find ways to augment that, to promote that, right? So that's something that we can talk about at the beginning of every day. So actually that's something that we haven't put on the schedule, but it worked quite well, is to have daily debriefs in the beginning and the end of the day. So
we used to do that on the obviously on the physical summit.
Yeah, and I think that worked quite well. And so that's where you can, again, you know, call attention to certain things. So I think we should definitely do that. You know, kickstart a meeting, and then maybe at the end of the day sessions, before the night sessions, and that's where you can reinforce the new sessions. And I guess the beauty of now the kind of Hey Summit model, if we can get it to work, is that we should have a way to, you know, for a person to register interest, right? To say, I want this, I want that. So absolutely, right? I found that some of the best summit sessions were literally created during the summit, where, you know, 7 or 8 people, you know, went and going, oh, you know, here we are, the ones who care about this topic. Let's talk about X. I think the thread modeling cookbook was a good example, literally, you know, and it's also a good example of something that it took like 2 summits to actually gain energy. But it's important because the stuff that happened on the first summit allowed the ideas for the second summit, you know, to emerge, and then it takes on a life of its own. So
how about we keep the last sessions of the day as dynamic sessions for each day? So other than the one that we're going to have, the Netflix party, people can decide on.
I don't think that works, because the reality is, and this is a good thing, right? The reality is there's always going to be, you know, a lot of sessions, right? That's just the nature of it, right? And I actually think if we really embrace this, again, look, if you look at the worldly maps of the summits, right? Like, we know, right, that once something gets commoditized, a lot of stuff happens on Genesis, right, and custom build. So we know that as we improve the practice, as we improve the you know, the sessions that we have, and the visibility and the management and the structure, more and more sessions would occur. What I think these working sessions should actually be blocks of half an hour, right? I think that they are, because they allow, you know, theoretically you can book 1, 2 hours, 3 hours, doesn't matter, but I think that we should allow them to kind of create participants a thing of half an hour, from blocks of half an hour, or almost actually throughout the day, right? Like, I actually think those dynamic sessions, if you really want to be flexible, it's kind of like, hey, they can happen anytime, as long as 2 organizers want to meet about a topic in an open space that they're happy for it to be recorded, right, and shared. Hey, that's a working session. right? It's a dynamic session, but of course what will happen is you're going to get 5, 10, 20, 30 people joining in, right? Because if you have 2 world experts or 5 world experts, or somebody who really care about a topic, there's bound to be others that are interested. So
I mean, it seems like the option for like breakout sessions would be awesome, but it does seem like a normal structure and flow, could take place as well at the same time. So it doesn't have to break up the main thing, but can break off into something unstructured.
And that's what you have, right? So what you have is you have the main schedule. And so the way to think about this is that we are like event organizers, right? Imagine like Glastonbury, right? Or imagine like a concert, basically. So we are the machine that gets the artists on stage, right? So our job is to make sure that we have lots of talent, that they actually turn up, right? That they actually, are sober, when they arrive and all that stuff. And music, so music analogy, actually not here, right? But so we make responsible, we are responsible for making sure that the artists who create have the maximum, resources available, and then the audience is there. Actually, I guess the difference in these analogies, we have a lot more artists than normal. So a normal conference is more traditional. You have one to many, where here is more like, we're getting a lot of people together. So sometimes what happens is the main schedule, the point of the main schedule is almost to generate enough energy for those individuals to realize that they really are working well together and they want to do something else. So what I've seen happen is literally in the session, they go, wow, this is amazing. We really need to continue this. How does 3 o'clock tomorrow look for you? What's 4 o'clock? And then literally they get together and they look at the other sessions and going, well, I care more about this one. And you have to remember that if a session gets, less participants because a better one appeared and it has more energy, that's great news, right? That's what happens. So but it helps a lot to have sense of gravity, and it helps a lot to have certain slots for certain part of the community to go, well, I care about this one, and that's enough to have enough momentum.
Yeah,
it's more like a sort of open mic nighty thing. But as I see there.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
But also the downside, I guess, is we're going to miss some of those sort of spontaneous type sessions where 2 or 3 people would rock up for a session that didn't happen and then just drink.
Yeah, and look, trust me, I've been on this for several times, right? There's always a conversation about the schedule. There's always a couple of cases that, yes, the schedule didn't work as well. Every time, those are always dwarfed by orders of magnitude by something awesome that happened because of the flexibility, right? So being flexible means that, we create a bit of a confusion sometimes, but we allow, I think it's, let me say, our schedule is pioneer custom build world, right? It's dynamic, goes all over the place, it has some structure. The schedule of the summit is definitely not product and commodity, right? Space. The conferences is different, right? The schedule is set up in advance, it doesn't freaking move. From our side,
there's some bits that you can sort of do, I guess, say, like sort of has been discussed, that one of the evening sessions could be, I don't know, some sort of film and general just sort of social. Another one, for example, could be set up for women in tech or women in cyber, and then actually opened up via a meetup. So it's actually open to people outside of the summit, because then that might bring some extra people in, and that could be earlier in the week actually, maybe. Get extra people in who are interested in the meetup from a women in tech side of life, and then you go, hey, this is actually part of a bigger summit, and it's only 50 quid to get yourself onto the other sessions.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot, right? And
speaking of women in tech and different sorts of I guess subjects and group meetups that could happen like that, what are some of the kind of topics or some of the directions that things have already been thought of, like as far as outside of what is just on the Slack? Because I see the channels, there's threat modeling, security jobs board, these different sections. So it tells me a little bit about, the basic subjects of what you guys have looked at so far. But for the miscellaneous subjects, what are some of the ideas that you've had?
They're on the slide, but let's discuss them. That's a very valid point. That's why we're here today.
So usually the miscellaneous track is kind of the track that has, topics that only have 1 or 2 sessions on it. So it becomes as sort of so that we don't have tracks, 40 tracks, right? So traditionally the miscellaneous track tends to be the one that when you don't have a lot of things that fit a particular bucket, we just put it there. So, so it's a good example. You can have even some CISO, right? Or some, let's say, CEO sessions can certainly start here. But if you have a lot of those, then, that can become a track in itself. So some of the topics, there is, you got, so the Cynefin framework is something that is interesting that we covered last time. But it's interesting because it still feels that the adoption on the industry is still quite low on that one, right?
Well, Wardley mapping started as a miscellaneous.
And it's over to the world.
Yeah, from what I've seen, that's not necessarily something I've noted as a very directly central thing, but I am interested to learn more, Have you guys done much with like OSINT or digital forensics type, either of those areas, I guess, or anything like reverse engineering or malware analysis?
We had sessions on malware in the past, right? The way to think about this is that everybody can create whatever session they want, right? It's literally that simple, right? And usually, to be transparent, what used to happen in the last summits is I would turn up, right, in January or February, and I would basically explode all over the schedule, literally make up literally 50 sessions so that I can go to people and say, hey, look, we got a summit on threat modeling. You should join in, right? Look at some ideas. And then they'll go, yeah, but those ideas suck. But actually, what about this ones? And then, and some of them will survive, some of them wouldn't survive. So I think this year, what we should try to do, especially next week, is to use the sessions and the voting of the sessions as a way to get a better pulse from the community. So I think me and Felipe and whoever wants to join, I think we need to do a bit of work on the site just to get that workflow done, ready. So I feel it's basically we need to get the site, basically Felipe, right? We need to get the site working just like last year, except that we don't have to worry about session registrations, right? Because we can do that over the Hay Summit. And but I think the rest of it, we need the same thing, right? We need, in fact, I actually think the other side schedule and ref kind of thing is actually quite friendly, because we can create, remember, we have schedule per track, we have schedule per day, we have schedule even individual, right? And we can map it there, except we don't need the individual this way, because you can do that on the other side. So I think we need to do that, because so the next goal for us should be to go to the community and say, hey, here are the sessions that we already think we have, and here's the list of sessions that if you don't start voting or showing interests, they won't happen.
So I think we do need to have them on Hay Summit so we can see how many people register.
Yeah, but we should also try to put the quality bar, right? So the quality bar is that only things that have already a good slot and somebody who's responsible for, and almost like an organizer will go on Hay Summit. So we could say that the Hay Summit is only let's DevOps the schedule, right? So the summit schedule will start to become formalized as we go along, and whatever is on the summit schedule, it becomes kind of locked, unless a majority of the individuals on that track agree that they want to move it around. Yeah,
and we can have those discussions as the organizers. Let's talk about miscellaneous stuff. What should we have?
So 3 good tracks or topics to go for, and I think we should really leverage this year, is actually CEO, security, investment, right? and actually COVID-19, right? And I feel that we can really help on those. And so I already got my CEO to commit, spend a good amount of time, and he's also reaching to his network. But I think also, theoretically, we all have our networks, right? And I think what would be very valuable is to have a number of sessions where we actually have CEOs talking about specific topics that we care about from a security point of view. So a good example is we had that conversation on Monday or Tuesday about what should CISOs do and how should CISOs behave and what's the structure of CISOs, right? But hey, we should actually be challenging those assumptions with the CEOs, right? We should be having also another series with CTOs where they basically talk about how they see security.
So what was your CEO's name?
Danny Lopez. So he's taking charge of that. Well, he's going to help with that.
Yeah.
But I think so the idea here is for us to reach out to other CEOs and saying, look, you should be involved. And this is a different working session. This is a working session where, for example, you have to be a CEO to be a panelist, right? Of course, you can always ask questions. Of course, that you kind of do there. But I think it's important to have a certain gravitas, because you actually want to hear from the CEOs, right? The ones who actually have the mandate.
Okay, next one, you said COVID apps.
Yeah, and COVID-19, right? So if you look at COVID, I think there's lots of interesting topics to cover around it, from the remote working, from the dynamic team structure, from the security of what's how people are looking at security from these elements. I think there's lots of great.
Put COVID apps in threat modeling as well. Is it enough to have it in threat modeling, or do we want it as a miscellaneous item as well?
So here's a question, right? One of the things I've always been frustrated in the past summits is I always felt that we missed a trick, because we have lots of people experienced with threat modeling, lots of people experienced with security, the representatives of the customer, and we never actually put them together. And what we should really be doing is, sometimes instead of saying, let's have a chat about threat modeling X, right? What we should be doing is a real threat model, right? It's almost like, let's threat model the COVID apps, right? Let's actually, for example, do a session where we look at the multiple patterns that people are using for the apps, and let's come up with recommendations and advice on it. Because they're different, right? They're different models, they're different things. And I think we could actually provide really good, valuable guidance, stuff as simple as make sure it's open source, make sure it's peer reviewed, make sure that it has a DevOps lifecycle, make sure that it's transparent, make sure the data governance is right. All those things I think are very relevant. And if you look at that, you have literally dozens or hundreds of countries pushing these things out to their citizens. Those guidelines will be actually very valuable. But the difference would be that it's a practical thing. It's almost like threat model, like Zoom, right? Threat model, video conferencing solutions, threat modeling, COVID apps. So I want a threat model, how to process malicious files in the cloud, for example, because I'm very interested in that. How to create detonation chambers inside, for example, Lambda functions that actually survive multiple executions.
Would that be under the COVID apps? Is that what you're saying? That'd be cool.
Yeah, well, I think COVID is.
Because I know there's been a lot of threats that have come from new apps, surrounding COVID-19. Yeah. So I was thinking, what if you actually took something apart that was one of those newer?
Yeah, absolutely.
I put them on the threat modeling track as user sessions, because we have a threat modeling track. But what about what we would cover for COVID apps in miscellaneous?
So this is interesting.
Miscellaneous.
In one of the summits, we actually, I think it was before when Bug Bounty was just starting, we actually organized bug bounty sessions. In fact, I remember in Portugal, I managed to do a deal with the Portuguese university to allow us to hack them, and it was really cool. It was like a joint.
Do a CTF maybe.
Yeah. So we did a live CTF at night. So the first idea for the evening kind of sessions were we were basically hacking away the university. And then at the end of the week, we actually gave them a report, right? So actually we can do the same thing. Like we were just saying that we can basically say, let's do a joint hackathon, right, on some of these sessions. And then of course, the logic is that every information is disclosed. There's no, I think the logic was that if we got any bug bounty, it would go back to OWASP at that time. Yeah, I think that'd be quite cool to have a couple of topics where we can even say from the first, maybe that's the thing to do. Maybe we could say that from the 1st of June, we also start a series of joint hackathons where we are basically doing an open collaboration on threat modeling and security review of these things. And if we say actually the COVID apps, that has enough public interest value to do it in a more public way. What do you guys reckon?
It could work. Yeah.
So you can have a joint hackathon, right, on the COVID apps.
Wallaby or Curtis, which one do I use? Would you like to lead one of them?
Whichever you want to use. Well, I'll put some thought into it. I don't want to jump right in and say yes yet. That is very interesting. Let me put some thought into that.
Yeah, but look, the thing about this, right? It's just to start talking about it, right? It's just to don't overthink a lot the kind of organization, right, of sometimes these sessions. Like what's needed is a bit of energy on somebody say, look, I think I'm going to go this direction. And that usually tends to be enough to find others that are interested. So I think here, if we say that we want to do a series of hackathons starting from the 1st of June around COVID apps, where it's a joint effort and collaborating over GitHub, collaborating over over Slack, and then culminating on a number of sessions where you can talk about it, I think that'd be really cool.
I think so too. And I guess one thing I was wondering is which apps I guess that we would go for, and the process of actually talking with the organizations about the possibilities. That's kind of the thing that I'm thinking more would be
and those are all in the preparation. When we start putting them into the schedule, we will think about all those things.
Yeah,
I definitely.
The interesting thing about this one is there is a public health case, right? Like, so if you follow the steps here, if we go to an organization and say, hey, we want to do a threat modeling, we want to review this, can you join in? If they ignored us, that by itself becomes a touch point, right? Because hey, we represent a part of the security community, right? There's very high respectable individuals, and actually when you look at I remember even Threads or OWASP or some of the, let's say, the ASVS guys saying, hey, we're more than happy to help out or reach out to us, right? Like you want, for example, these apps to say we do the ASVS, level 1, we have this maturity model. We test against the OWASP top 10. We've published our threat models, right? We've done our security reviews. We have our security pipelines. And I think there's an argument to be said that because of the level of transparency on these apps, we have a moral authority to just get on with it, right? And if somebody says no, it's a touch point, right?
I definitely agree, and I would definitely be interested in that. I do think that there's another area too that I'd like to be able to figure out how to get kind of swinging if it would work out. I know Trace Labs does open source intelligence, capture the flags. Basically, they're actually seeking real missing people with real cases that maybe something that might we might consider including in something like this. So that's something I've been keeping in my head as far as something that maybe I might want to engage in talking with them about, or if one of you wanted to be able to do that too. But that's kind of something else that I had in the back of my head. So I'm like, all right, I'm weighing that out. But yeah, I definitely would be interested in doing that, and I for sure would be happy to to talk with the different organizations and let them know about what we're doing.
Cool.
Yeah, why not? And would that be also in the training weeks? Potentially. The first
For the open source intelligence, you're saying?
Yeah.
Maybe. I guess that's something we'd really have to think about and figure out. I hadn't really.
Because yeah, it could work because they already have a big Trello board with many, not targets, but missing persons.
They do. I do think that the one thing we would want to talk with them about maybe is putting another channel on their Slack where we can actually meet, and we're not going to be just like overwhelming all the rest of it or whatever, or having our own channel that relates to it where, I don't know,
yeah,
it'd be something to talk with them about and try to figure out how it would.
Create as channel as you want, right? Literally,
I was going to say,
a channel per track, right? But if you don't have to, but the more channels, the more focused the conversation is.
Right.
And the other side is you can always put chili indicators on the sessions about how complex they're going to be. AWS does this when they have their big reInvent thing. They give indications as to the complexity of the different sessions.
Yeah, I like that.
I suppose that with open source intelligence, the complexity really depends on the individuals that are coming to it and how deep they're able to go.
Yeah, but look, but the reality is, and this is a real problem, right? Is that the summit does put people together that are, for example, already at a certain level. So I'll give you an example. In the summits, especially on side one, there was always almost a second conference, a separate event that was happening that was focused around 5 or 10 individuals that literally went to the summit because they want to work on something. So a good example is the testing guide. If you look at the mobile testing guides, the 7 or 8 creators or key players of that guide, they went to the summit and they locked themselves in a room for 80% of the time, right? Because that's what they want. They said, look, we're going to use the summit as a massive effort just to get this thing over the line. Same thing with Juice Shop, same thing with Sam. And what's happened sometimes in some of those sessions, and not just on there, but on others, is that there's a level of expertise that you almost want to continue the conversation forward. And actually, it can be quite sometimes frustrating when you have newcomers saying, hey, I really like about this. And you kind of don't want to push them away. But on the other hand, that's not the moment in time to introduce a concept. That's the moment in time to actually evolve the concept. So I like that chili indicators as to say, hey, this is going to be an advanced one on Worley Maps, right? Or thread modeling. If you've never done a thread model, you're going to come and watch.
So then maybe the training sessions beforehand. Well, that's the thing. I don't think that really anything regarding OSINT would, or with Trace Labs would necessarily separate those that are more experienced from those that aren't so experienced. In fact, the way that they have it set up there, everyone would be kind of working together to some extent.
And I have 0 OSINT experience, but we formed the team and we joined. So anyone can really have a go.
Yeah.
If we are going to be one team doing this all together, we can learn from each other.
Oh yeah, look, the best way to learn is to actually see experts in action, right? That's the best way. So what about this idea that on the week before we actually have training session and hacking sessions, right? And the hacking sessions, which goes back to Daniel Cuthbert has a really good point on Wednesday, that we kind of need to reach out to the new generation of the bug bounty and the kind of the hacking and that crowd. Because the reality, that's how we all started, right? Look, I started security by freaking hacking my way into it, right? Like, I was just breaking stuff left, right, and center. And it was really exciting, right? And I think we that's very important. I tell everybody on my team on security, like, before you defend, you have to break, right? The question is, how fast can you evolve from breaking or not evolving? Some people just want to break all day. That's cool. But I think you can't defend really well if you don't really know how to exploit the hell out of it, right? Because I think in your brain, there's something that changes. There's some chemical reactions that happens in your brain once you do some exploits, right? Like you do the happy dance and you go like, holy shit, right? And I think that's very important. So
I have a person in mind to reach out to. He teaches the new generation bug bounties and how to find exploits and stuff.
And actually, if you go back to OSINT, it's almost OSINT, open security intelligence and stuff like that, right? We're almost saying that this is a collaborative hacking exercise, right? So so we need to pick on something that by proxy has to be open, right? So any open source project or anything that has general benefit, like the COVID apps, I think is a good target. So if we say that in the week before, we want to hack away, and actually, so the other thing is to get companies to also provide their own apps. So that was something we did a couple of times. It didn't work as well, but maybe now have an audience where companies come around or open source platforms and say, hey, hack us, right? Here it is, right? We're on the channel, right? We're around, if you find a vulnerability, let us know straight away. It's kind of like, the hacking village, right? In DEF CON, where, the car manufacturers go and say, hey, here's our car, right? See if you can break in, right?
Cool. I think I have enough ideas on this, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that I guess there is a slight difference, I guess, between, hacking and doing OSINT, and that with OSINT, you're not really doing any hacking.
The whole thing is hacking, man. It's just a very low touch. It's a very specialized form of hacking, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, you're not actually accessing anything you're not supposed to. You're just gathering all that you can. Yeah. That's, in open source.
Anyway, I have an idea about it. So we can do OSINT one week and we can do the hackathon in the other week so that people can join them separately.
I like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk about the other stuff. So last year we had Dave Snowden. Are we going to have him again? Do you know?
Not sure yet.
Not sure yet. But do we want to do the Kinefin or not?
Look, I think for a lot of these questions, the bottom line is that we don't control it, right? There will be a Kinevin framework session if enough people want to do, a Kinevin session. So I think this is where starting to put those on the calendar, and both on the summit website as drafts and then on the Hey Summit as potential summit sessions. I think it's what will normalize that. So I feel that we have a bit of work to do, and anybody can help would be brilliant, which is to try to come up with a first pass at what are the sessions and the ideas that we already captured, right? And we capture a lot of ideas this week, right? I know you have your notes, I have my notes, and everybody else. So I think we need to do a dump of that into the summit website, extract the ones that we feel have a good level, put them on the main Hey Summit website, maybe try it so that on Monday, on Tuesday, we can go to the community and say, hey, please start registering so we get some metrics. Mm-hmm. And then by the end of the week, we can actually know what sessions we can take out of the main schedule because there's not a lot of interests, or sessions that we want to do more because there's a lot of interest on it.
So to avoid having too many, not sessions, but overlaps and people using different words for the same sessions, give me one day. I will try to put everything I had taken notes of tomorrow onto the main site. Then we can start adding or updating them.
And remember that, it's all about the participants, right? It's all about that moment when you realize there's these 5 or 10 individuals around one topic and they go, what should we talk about? So one thing that we really should be leveraging is, for example, a session between, worldly maps, Scrum, and Teams topologies, right? Like that would be a brilliant session because I don't think none of them have completely solved the problem. and having a session where you kind of almost connect the dots and individuals share their experience is very valuable. Like, I don't know, have you guys looked at the team topology stuff? There's a book about it.
Are you asking us as this group? Okay, I haven't.
Yeah, it's really
I've
cool.
looked at the website briefly.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because it solves, what it does is it talks about the sweet spot for it, is it talks about the relationships between the different, it almost think about it as an abstraction layer on top of PSD, right? It's kind of like when you look at the Pioneer Sets and Town Planners, then it kind of adds a layer on top of it, where it starts to talk about what are core functions, how is the intersection that happens between them, what's the services team that serves others versus a platform team or a supporting or an outreach. And it's interesting, I think they miss a trick by not embracing PSD, because I think that solves some of the problems that they also have. So, and if you look at squads, I would argue that the squad model, they take into account that even Spotify says that they don't use the squad model the way it was prescribed. I think it's very valuable, right? So I found that at Glasswall, the squad concept allowed me to create dynamic teams. So now the company has already this idea that teams can take from a week to 2 weeks to a month, and we basically funnel energy almost on a monthly basis, which is really powerful. And we use squads for that. So the squad idea, and then we actually now stabilized on squads that then have features and then stories and then tasks, and then there's if you need key results and objectives. But those intersections are actually really what the summit is special about, and that's what we should be going for. Like, we should be going for sessions that what makes them special is that at the same time you have 2 or 3 intersecting.
We have that session for team topologies, pioneer settlers, and squads and tribes. Yeah. We already thought about it in the CISO track.
Yeah. Those are the sessions that I feel that we should be thinking of doing, right? The intersecting sessions, which you only have, there's a great, I think it was Ant Gullum was talking, he loved this conference he went, it was called Hackers and CISOs or something like that. And it was basically, again, putting together CISOs, right? Or hacking in exec or something like that. It's kind of like Hackers on the Plane or something. But it was this conference that on purpose put very deep technical people with very, very deep kind of business and structure, and have them talk to each other and say, look, you guys, you need to understand better both worlds. So that cross-site scripting is actually not that important. or why, that one is really important.
So we have one more topic in there. Overcoming over-engineering. What do you think about that?
I would love that. I have to say, it was, I completely underestimated how much over-engineering goes on. It's only when I'm now leading engineering that I realize how sometimes left to their own devices, the teams would just over-engineer the hell out of it, literally,
Because they can, or just because it occurs?
The way they think, I think.
I think it's because creating something simple is really hard, right? I'll give you an example, right? So we want a feature, right, in our email platform to do zip, right? So you send zips, we unzip, we break it apart, right? And I was basically saying, so our model now is to create products out of it. And I was basically saying, I want a service that just does zip really well, which I think would be very valuable, right? To have a service, a cloud service that takes a file and zips it and spits out files on the other end, it's actually very valuable. And when you really think about it, it gets very complicated very fast. You have multiple levels of zip, you have tons of zip archives, you have how do you do it? It's actually potential malware. But it's amazing, the first 3 versions of the product spec were insane, right? They were adding features like the user can choose the files, they can do this, they can do that. I'm like, I just want a zip function, right? Like literally I want one thing that it does really well. And it's amazing how it's so easy to over-engineer things. And also, it's very easy not to create end-to-end solutions, right? So you don't have this is where Simon is spot on, where you don't start with the customer. So my thing now is I go to everybody and ask, who's your customer? Like, who are you working for? So you're a developer, you're a business analyst, or a salesperson, or like, where's the connection between you and the real customer that wants it? And I think in business, that doesn't exist. So you end up a lot of the time creating things for a mythical future customer. So you're trying to solve problems so find solutions for problems that others have, or they might have, and you're trying to preemptively, do that, which is why you end up with this massive bloat of features. And security does that a lot, right? In security, we massively over-engineer our solutions, right? We lose the plot, right? We don't realize that if you move the risk a bit better, if you reduce risk, that's better than not reducing risk. And we go very anal, right, on all sorts of security topics, where the reality is, it's much better sometimes to move the needle than not to do anything about it, right?
Cool. We have like 2 minutes left. So I've taken lots of notes and I will try to put them in. But the two things that I'm not very sure about, the debrief sessions and the dynamic session ideas, I'm not very clear on what we're going to do with them.
So I think the dynamic sessions, I think we should say it's blocks of half an hour to be booked on demand.
Yeah, we could put, ask people at the beginning of each day, maybe, or at the beginning of the week, to put in ideas, and then we put them into a poll that we can ask people to vote on.
In fact, we can already start that from now on, because we already need those sessions. So look, this is about, again, think of the mapping, right? We need to commoditize the creation of those sessions, right? So look at Sam. Sam turns around and says, hey, we want to talk about this, but I can't do that time. I can't do that time. We just need to create the workflow and the environment and the toolkit so that the community for Sam come together and say, hey, next Tuesday at 4 o'clock, that's when we can get together, right? And then we just need to have the machine at our end to create the sessions, to support it, to work with them. And this is something, Adam, as we kind of evolve a bit more your role, it's something I would like you to kind of support, which is that sort of back office of, sessions. Like, so I already want to have a bunch of sessions on topics that I care about. As a user, as a consumer of this, I almost need to have a number of services that makes my life easier. So I can say, look, where's the doodle pool that I can easily create or ask for? Who can just book them, and then they will come.
We can do them on Slack. Sorry? So every day during the summit, every day we can tell people to put their ideas, dynamic session ideas, onto one specific channel on Slack. And at noon, we make people vote for it. And that's...
No, but now it's easy, right? Because of the Hey Summit, right? It's actually the workflow. It's almost to say, hey, if you have a session you create a working session, people can vote on it, right? It's actually, make it simple. Don't put as the bottleneck.
It's not simple. If you try to put everything on Hey Summit, that's not going to be simple, and it's going to mess up the schedules. If you put them on Slack and vote for them on Slack and put the winner on Hey Summit, then people can join it.
Yeah, well, yeah. So let's figure out the
It just takes it.
Sorry,
just a simple response on Slack would be a good vote.
Yeah, you're right.
You can do polls on it, can't you?
Sorry?
You can do polls on Slack there.
Yeah, and you can use the emoji. Yeah, so you're right. Slack emojis is quite good. So actually, that's an interesting thing. So the way to do this, we should actually, maybe from next week, start saying, we are already happen and open for having working sessions, dynamic sessions, anytime between now and the summit. And what we're doing is we're going to learn how to do it better. So by the time we get to the summit, we hopefully have a nice, fine oil machine that every day, like you're saying, Vidar, we start saying, hey, here are the current dynamic sessions for today. Here's the place where you come in and add the ones you want. And then we use our amplification of, in a way, controlling the medium to nudge individuals to those sessions. So the model for the working session then is a block of half an hour between, literally any time, from 0 to midnight, right? Literally, it doesn't matter, right? For us, yes, we'll have some technology and workflows to sort out, but that's something that we can do on ourselves, right? But we can basically say that a working session can happen at any time in blocks of half an hour, right? So then let's see what actually what you find that some of these working sessions will depend on an individual being available at that moment in time, right?
There's an app for that, isn't there? It's called Weeble or something like that. Where there's an online app thing where basically a bunch of people, you put their names into their email addresses, and then it has all the sort of different dates and stuff, and then everyone says what or time slots, and everyone says when they can do the things, and then it enables it to work out when the most efficient one that they can all do. But I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah. By the way, look, Hey Summit is just a good example of an app, but I don't feel that we should limit ourselves to it, right? Like part of what we're doing here is discovering technology, right? And discovering what is the point where we that's a product, but we might need to do some custom building on top of it. But we have the ability to experiment. And I quite like that. So if you guys can figure out, or if you can find other apps that will make our life easier, that would be very valuable.
Doodle.com.
Oh, is that the app?
It's not mine thing, yeah.
I felt it was like something a bit more advanced. But yeah, no, Doodle is great. Yeah, Doodle.
There you go. So, I mean, we don't have to use it, but we can and say to people, like for certain certain sessions, especially the dynamic ones, we can say, look, there's a doodle for that if you want to be involved, in a certain topic, and we can plug in the different dynamic sessions into the doodle, and then people can select. And when you've got the, and that can work out the most number of people for a particular dynamic session.
Yeah. I like it. In fact, we can even use it for normal sessions, right? Yeah, no, I like that. I did that. Let's take a look at it, right? Because I feel that, we already have a scheduling problem, right? Ourselves. And that can solve that problem, So cool.
Okay.
So let's explore the hacking days, right? And the open intelligence hacking. I think that will generate a good amount of energy, and maybe just find a couple of more centers of gravity. So actually, I was thinking you basically have COVID and Hack Me apps, which are or sites, which are basically are sites or products that the companies who are involved in the summits basically say, it's like an open bug bounty, right? Say, hey, have a go.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm actually thinking about getting started at looking at different places and how that would work.
Yeah. Well, I can tell them, look, I can already throw some of my apps to the ring, right? I can already say, so Glasswall would already have 2 or 3 products and websites in there that, look, I'm a CISO and I prefer, this community to break the hell out of it than to discover it, in a completely different way, right? So I would say that, I'll throw some apps from my side on the whole Hack Me, have a go, right? And the nice thing, if you go back to the theme that we pick up, is how I do it. I feel that the best way to learn is when you see somebody else and how they approach a problem. So I think it would be really valuable for everybody to see, how do others approach, for example, breaking application, doing a threat model, what's the questions being asked, what is the chain of thought for how they approach it. So I think that'd be really cool.
Good.
I like it.
5 minutes overrun. I'm gonna stop the recording. 3, 2, 1.